first, congratulations. I know that this can be a whirlwind of a process, not a process necessarily new to you. But I think, before we get it off into any of the other nuts and bolts, nooks and crannies, set the record straight, lady. Are you or aren't you engaged?
All I know is I don't have a ring on my finger at this moment. So I don't know what that means. Guess you'll have to find out.
Let me see. Let me put the hands up again.
No tan lines either.
That is a ringless. Those are ringless hands. Okay. Now, this process I know it's got to be a lot of fun, right? But it also has to be particularly stressful because you're doing it in front of America, right? What was your reaction though when ABC called you and said, "We want you to be the next Bachelorette"?
I was honestly shocked because there are so many great women from my season, and the fact that they chose me, I just feel so grateful for the opportunity to find love,
Yeah, I mean, that ultimately is the goal, right? The question, and I want to be very careful about how I ask this to you, but I just wonder, when we first met you, you were bringing the good vibes, if you know what I mean. Like
yeah.
You were good energy, but also good vibrations.
Yes.
And I just wonder if this time around, if you had, that same kind of energy for yourself for your own season.
I mean, absolutely. There's going to be some themes around some of those conversations,
right.
which are fun, but there's also very serious ones as well. But also, I think Bachelor Nation is going to get to see a side of me that they don't know yet. And that's what I'm excited for as well.
Well, it's interesting that you say, some of the conversations are serious because and while that we were joking about that a second ago, it is kind of cool to me to have this dare I say sex positive, kind of bachelorette, a woman who is owning her sexuality, taking charge of her sexuality, and not necessarily putting that power in the hands of anyone else's approval. Well, for you, what does that feel like? I mean, honestly, you're doing it on a national scale, you know what I mean?
For me, I never thought it was going to be this big thing. It's just something I'm comfortable with doing. But the amount of messages I get saying, "Thank you for starting these conversations. I'm now comfortable talking about it with my partner or their parents or their friends." I think it's so important. It's 2021.
Yeah.
Let's talk about sex.
Let's talk about sex.
Yes, get
it. Okay, so now I guess my question to you is that have you always been this confident when it comes to who you are, how you move, how you operate, or is this something that you kind of woke up to recently?
I mean, it takes a long time, I think, to get to where you are. And for me, I'm 30 years old and I'm finally in a place where I love myself. I'm confident in myself, but that does take time, to figure out.
What also takes time is knowing if the fellas who are in the house are there for the right reasons. We saw you get a little emotional, making in some of the promos, with the question that happens, I think, with every season of this show, regardless of whether it's in the house or paradise. It's like, what are you really here for? Do you feel like that your guys were indeed actually, that maybe your top guys, your final guys were really all there with the right intentions in mind?
Yeah, I definitely led with my intuition to kind of weed out the ones who were not good for me, there for the wrong reasons. And, towards the end, I feel very confident that I had a solid group of men.
I know that with Chris Harrison not returning to host this season of The Bachelorette, I know that you had some thoughts. I know that you also had gotten perhaps maybe even close to him in working with him, but I'm curious to know how you felt about the announcement that he would not be returning, and if you had any specific feelings about it.
I mean, the show and him are going to do what's best for them. And in the moment, I didn't know what that meant for me. And so when they surprised me with Kaitlyn and Tayshia, it just kind of was this relief of like, okay, at least I'm not doing this alone. And in fact, this is even better because these are women who have gone through it and can really offer some great advice. So for me, I was very happy to get to go through my journey with these women supporting me through it.
Now, do you feel like I mean, because it's a pretty cool thing, right? It's one thing to have the guy who's been associated with the brand from the very beginning, in this host capacity, but it's a different thing to have two women who have gone through the thing that you were literally going through. What were some of those conversations like with them, when the three of you got together and was like, girl, nobody told you this part?
I mean, you can only imagine the kind of conversations that come up with that, including fantasy suites, heartbreak, falling in love, conversations I just felt more comfortable having with these two women, and I think it's going to be really fun for Bachelor Nation to watch it back and kind of see these behind the scenes moments of women supporting women.
What did they tell you? Like, what were give me one of the tips you were like, oh, now that one is one I needed. Like, was there a conversation y'all had where you were like, I don't know what I would have done without that info?
Yeah, there's two different pieces that come to mind. One is, don't fall in love on the first night. Be open to everybody, And trust me, I did. I was very open to all these men.
I feel like, Katie, that's about to be a meme. I feel like.
Hey, I'm being honest, okay? And then the other part was, letting go of control, letting things happen the way they're supposed to, and know that you can't plan falling in love. It happens the way it's meant to happen.
Yeah. Do you feel like you fell in love?
I definitely fell in love with more than one guy.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now be honest.
They're great men. Like, it's easy to do with these groups.
Be honest with me. And this is not in my sheet. This is just a conversation like me and you are having. But when you're on TV and you're falling in love, really falling for, maybe not love, but falling for more than one guy, what is it like for you when you get like back in your own space and you're like, okay, but girl, you got to remember we are on TV. You got to lock it up a little bit. Like, what the conversation that you have with yourself, like, because we're all going to see everything. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I just kind of waited for that moment of like this, like clarification of like, this is the one, in each relationship, I just focus on that guy. And then when I would go on another date, I just focus on that guy. And so I kind of closed off other relationships and try to stay focused on everyone as an individual. And at some point, you do have to make a choice and figure out who's the one. Right. And so for me, I started to do that, towards the second half of my journey.
It's unreal. It's unreal. I mean, yeah, I can imagine, right? Because normally this is not an uncommon practice to date multiple people until you find the one that you know what I mean? Like, that's a common American thing to do. But then you add the element of like TV and you like your parents, you know what I mean? Aunties, cousins, uncles. What were some of the conversations with them once you knew that you were going to be the Bachelorette?
Me and my family are very open. I don't become this sex positive girl without having a family that's just the same. In fact, you'll see hometowns and get a little piece of that, I'm sure. So I'm very excited for that.
Was also Mom excited for hometown?
I don't know how she feels yet. Depends watching it back.
Right. No, I understand that. Listen, David Spade was actually just announced that he's tapped for host for Paradise. Tell me honestly what your thoughts are of David Spade in Bachelor in Paradise.
He's a comedian, so if that's what's happening, then I think that's refreshing. I'm more focused on actually my exes showing up to Paradise because I know some of them are. Ooh. And I have friends who are in Paradise, so it's just going to be a very interesting season for me to watch in general.
Now, do you watch Paradise? I would feel like that was torture.
I mean, normally I watch it as a fan. Right. Now knowing I have friends there, ex-boyfriends there, I'm absolutely tuning in.
Now, Katie, do you tell the friends my exes are off limits or what? What's the deal there?
Fair game. They're my exes for a reason. You can have them.
I know that's right. Listen, this has been such a pleasure. It is. I cannot wait to talk to you more. Is there anything before we go? Is there anything that happened in the house in this process that was maybe interesting or cool while it was happening, but you're worried about watching it back? You're concerned about watching it back, not necessarily for what people's reaction might be, but for the emotions you might actually feel again.
Yeah, I think reliving any kind of heartbreak is going to be tough to watch back for sure. And that's
Yeah.
going to happen.